I want to start at the Melbourne Football Club. Bucks.
Well,
0-4. What's going through Simon Goodwin's head right now?
Not a lot of good. It's we've heard Vossi talk about it, and we'll get to Carlton. But when you're in a coach in that position, you are working out what do I have to hang my hat on? What are we going to die in a ditch about? Like the most important things in our game, and you've got to come back to basic principles and focus on that. But there's a lot that isn't working for Melbourne at the moment.
Is that pre-season stuff you worked on?
Well, it doesn't really matter what you've done pre-season at the moment.
But isn't that the thing you worked on the most, though, so the players should know the most?
Absolutely, they should.
You're not throwing those plans out, are you, this early?
If you don't get contest right, and if you don't get the buy-in from the players right, and you don't give them enough of the tools to actually go out and get the job done, and there's enough evidence to suggest that Melbourne are off the pace. They're just not where they want to be, not where they thought they would be. So Simon Goodwin, the head coach, has to plot the course out, set the path, and then be the leader to drive them out by his words. You can't do it by deed. If you're a leader, you're doing it by deed. But as a coach, you've just got to give the players the tools on how they're going to get out of this situation.
Geordie, you've been under the Simon Goodwin tutelage. How do you think he would have attacked this morning? What would have been the first thing that he would have done just to right the ship at 0-4?
Oh, I think you've got to acknowledge, where you're going wrong and probably the things that they've been focusing on internally and either good things or bad things. So I think the level of consistency in the way that you review games is important. We all engross ourselves in the external noise because that's what we do, and you would hope that the players, to some degree, would be shutting that out because you don't want it to influence your decision-making on field. You don't want it to influence your relationships inside that football club, because right now them and Carlton are the two big Melbourne sides who are struggling to find form and a diverge of confidence.
Is there a worry that there may be too many holes for Melbourne at the moment? Like, where do you start? Because you look at their game as a whole and there is a lot of holes. Where does Simon Goodwin start? Well,
there's some positives as well. I mean, Windsor looks like he's going to be a player, and he's missed a couple of games of that month, which is an issue. Young Langford has stepped up and has shown in glimpses what he's capable of. They're missing McVie, down back, there's no doubt. But Chandler's having a really good beginning to the season, so you've got to look for we call them green shoots or the bright sparks. You've got to look for the things that are working, and you've got to celebrate that. We've all been in environments where it doesn't really work for you, but that's not working for them, and that's the thing that's hurt them most. Well, they came up. Sparrow came and sat on Holmes, and I reckon it was for three reasons. One was to try and win clearance and get field position. They drew that. It ended up being level. They wanted to slow down Geelong, and they were able to slow down Geelong, so they achieved that. That's a tick. But I think they might have been thinking that it could speed them up off the back half or give them an extra number to change angles, which is bloody hard to do at GMHBA. It's the hardest oval to find space and to change the angle. But that's a big cross, and they just weren't able to be effective on turnover. And that's been consistent over a long period of time now, to be able to have effective ball use from your back half to your front half to actually score from and challenge the opposition.
I look at Christian Petracca as I suppose the inspirational leader of that football club. He's their highest paid player. He's probably their best player at the moment. And the fallout from being 0-4 was strewn across his face after the game. What sort of look do you think about when you see Christian Petracca at the end of the final siren on the weekend, Geordie?
I feel for him.
He's throwing the mouth guard.
He's clearly an emotional person. Now, would I do that, or would I want one of my teammates to do that? No, I used to like, behind closed doors, you can be an emotional and have really constructive conversations, and maybe it's old school. Never show that type of emotion on the field, because I think at one end you've got him who's clearly disappointed. It means a lot to him. He's a competitor. He likes to win. And then you've got Clayton Oliver, who is also competitive, effectively joking with opposition players at the end of the game. So they're miles apart.
Which would you rather, though? Which would you rather? You'd rather that, though, than joking.
And you're a Melbourne
opposition.
man. If I'm a Melbourne person, I want the Petracca, don't you? Does that not say that he cares?
Yeah, I think we care. I think we know he cares. I don't know. I just think have those conversations and let that emotion boil over behind closed doors. And I don't know whether that's right or wrong. That's just what I expected of my teammates, and certainly the way that I wanted. You just never wanted to show weakness, and I know, or emotion, but maybe that's.
Is that how would you deal with that as a coach? Do you address that at all, because the experienced player just let it go?
Well, I think it's great to see that a player cares, and your emotions are going to spill over. If it doesn't matter to you, well then that's a real concern.
What do you prefer as a coach? Do you prefer that, or do you prefer the laughing and joking after the loss?
Well, I prefer actions. Actions in the game and to get it done there. You spoke about Oscar Allen after that game, talking about he needed to own his actions. Like, in the end, the Melbourne players need to own their situation.
So is that a Goodwin thing that he needs to address it though? Is it not gone, or is it because it's a fine line with Petracca, obviously touted as potentially leaving last year and challenging the whole football club.
What do you think about it?
Well, I like it, but I also loathe it a little bit. And I think that I've been caught in that position as an emotional player. But I would think that I had an incident, I think Fremantle got challenged, and I remember sometimes the camera can tell a different story, and I got challenged by the senior leaders of the football club.
What about Dimmer? Was Dimmer your coach then?
Well, I think Dimmer was smart enough to go, maybe he's going to get the best out of me from my teammates coming at me. So I'm looking at Max Gawn here. I think Max Gawn's got to say, Christian, yes, we love it, but we need you to turn that into change.
Well, he was one of the highest rated players in the ground. He was Melbourne's best player for the night. So his actions were positive. He emptied out and he was upset that they didn't get the result. So I think that's where you've got to come back to. If his emotions had a negative impact on what he did in the game, well then that's when, or a negative impact on his teammates, well then that's when you need to challenge it. After the game, like, that was just an outpouring of emotion, and to be honest, it's had no consequence. Like, if he prepares really well this week, connects with his teammates, gives the right feedback in reviews, accepts the feedback in reviews, and then goes and acts on it, like, that means nothing. It's just a very public display of disappointment and
frustration.
But he performed really well compared to his cohort, so you can't be disappointed.
Yeah, and I think that was leaving the game. We were down there in Geelong and going to the game. There was question marks over their leaders and how they performed, and are they worried about themselves, or are they prepared to give themselves over to the teammate? And I think leaving that game, and it's very hard to talk about these types of things when they've had the loss that they've had, but I left thinking there were some positive things out of the game, and I thought the midfield energy was great. I thought Max Gawn was aggressive in the ruck. I thought Petracca and Oliver around the middle of the ground, and Petracca played forward as well. And their ball movement has always been questioned. So I saw players taking risks when quite often in this season we haven't seen that. And it is a hard ground to move the ball. We've acknowledged that. I thought Tom McDonald was fantastic on the night. He and Stephen May were really solid in defence. But for me, it was these types of kicks and this type of ball movement that I think Melbourne are trying to get back into their game. Now, they fell down on maybe some of the possessions in the chain and a missed handball or whatever it might be. But I saw positive signs from this Melbourne team down in Geelong.
So is it as simple as this for longer for Melbourne at the moment, just being that little bit more proactive, using the corridor and actually opening sides up that way?
Well, it's not automatic at the moment, so it will feel clunky and there will be skill errors along the way. But so we put out the contested possessions and the clearance stuff before. That's fallen away. They can't then concentrate on that and react to that. I think this part of their game still needs to evolve. And at a difficult ground against a difficult side, I left that game thinking there's some positive to hang their hat on.
Have they got enough kickers, decent kickers in the team? There's decision making, and then there's actual skill level.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge. And when you look at the top kickers in the league, the top 100 kickers in the league, they've got one player, which is Harrison Petty.
Harrison Petty.
Where does he rate his kick?
So
he's effective field kick.
A most effective field kick at 96. Their next best is Bowie at 136, Salem at 137, and Jack Viney at 149 in the competition. So.
And you'd suggest that Harrison Petty's not damaging you a lot at the moment. This is potentially short kicks, but that is not,
he's
not a damaging kick.
He wouldn't have been in the top 5 or top 10 if you had to try and guess off the top of your head.
No.
I'm glad I'm not driving at the moment. I'd crash my car if I saw that stat.
Yeah.
I honestly would. That was it. To say the only player in the top 100 field kicks in the competition from Melbourne is Harrison Petty.
Yep. That's concerning.
So is that system or is it ability?
Well, I think it's a little bit of system because when you play and you get the ball, you want to automatically know your outs. Now, if that hasn't been taught, the system hasn't been taught as well as it should, the kicks become difficult because you second guess yourself.
And for clarity, that's not a kicking efficiency. It's not just like had 10 kicks, hit 6. Yeah. That's about kick rating, which judges how difficult the kicks are compared to the ones that you hit. And if you go for easy kicks and miss that, well then you're a massive minus. If you go for a hard kick and hit that, well then you get a plus, and that's how they work it out. So Melbourne just aren't making their kicks easy enough or kicking it or hitting enough of those targets.
Yeah, and then on the other end of the argument is that the players ahead of the ball, so there's got to be some improvement there. So I know Van Rooyen's been there for a while, but you talk about the efficiency going inside 50. Well, they had 50 inside 50s. They only kicked 6 goals, but then the forwards got to hold up their end of the bargain. So Jacob Van Rooyen's been around long enough now. I watched him really closely on the weekend, and Jack, you would have seen him closely over the years as well. He's got to get his footwork better. The main thing for a key forward is your footwork, and he's clumsy. He's a bit stompy with his feet, so he's got to tidy that up because he's turning 65-70% advantages into 50-50 balls when he should be at least taking some of those. He's only taken 2 contested marks out of the 4 games this year. Well, he needs to be better.
He had 3 there that he should have gobbled up.
Well,
and they're 3 set shots on goal, which slows the game down and gives Melbourne a chance at the very least to hold field position if a set shot isn't finished. At best, you finish it and you go back to centre bench, you go again. Yeah. Like that has a profound impact on the game.
Some positive signs there for the Dees. Obviously, zipping forward, not where they want to be, but we've shown some footage there for some positive signs.